Okay, so hi guys. So thanks for coming for my job sharing at 3 p.m. I know it's like in the middle of the day. It's a bit like air timing, but I will just be sharing about how I felt about job in JC. And if you are interested in taking job in JC, then hope my sharing can inspire you or anything. Oh yeah, I'm Aloysius if I forgot to introduce myself. But there's an intro about me. So I was from EJC. I just graduated last year. So I took H2 job, H1 physics. Initially I took H2 physics, but I dropped the H1. So during my presentation today, I'll be talking a bit about H1 in general, as well as if you are planning to take geography in H1. And I'll be studying in communication studies and business in WikiWi, which is in NTU after I get out of army. Yes. So this is the overview that I'll be talking about today. So I'll be starting off with what requirements you need in order to take geography at A level. My experience of taking geography, the difference between A level and O level geography, the what can you expect from H1 versus H2, and more specifically H1 geography, and any tips that I can give you. Then finally at the end, we'll do the Q&A session. I'll try and make this as less boring as possible because I see some of you like stayed from the previous session. So I'm not sure if some of you just like straight just keep doing all these talks like at one shot and you may get quite tired. So I'll try and make it as interesting as possible. So we'll start off with if there are any prerequisites to take job in JC, and the answer for that is no. You do not have to take job at O level or at N level in order to take job in JC level. This is the same that goes for history. And for lit, you need lit in upper sec. So only geog and history, there's no prerequisites if you want to take it at A level. So moving on to my experiences in geog. So what made geog quite fun for me was like the different experiences that the teachers actually made. So you may think like studying got very fun, meh? But no. So this is like pre-COVID times. So my school actually brought us to a trip to Kuantan to like um learn more about like the different rocks and like different landscapes that are there about in the like in Kuantan. And then we also did like our GI there. And we even went to like in Singapore we went to Tiong Bahru to do our GI. So like geography in general actually allows you to have more experiences rather than like in science, like more outdoor experience. Where in like sciences you kind of just do like your practical in like the labs. So I'm not sure if like cause with COVID now for my school wise we just go to like Bishan Park opposite to like do our GI, but hopefully like when y'all come in or anything there'll be like more trips or more things to do. Because I have a few friends from other schools taking job and their schools do like bring them out to do GI and all, which I think is like one of the unique points about geography is that you really get to go outdoors and like really explore a lot. And like for example, there are many class activities and that my school always does. So like in this photo, it's like very hard to explain, but basically we're testing out the different solubility of the rocks. And my teacher actually put in like a chocolate which looked like a rock, and inside all these plastic bags of rocks. And she ate it in front of me. Then I was just like, oh my god, why did she just eat the rock? But yeah, it was a chocolate. It's quite fun for this. Usually in lectures, some of it can be quite dry for job, but usually my teacher will try and like make it interesting and all. So but generally it's quite content based if you're asking about job lectures, and in tutorials usually try and consolidating what you go through in like the lectures. So O level versus A level job. So what y'all may be thinking is like job in O level actually quite easy to score as long as you like memorize everything, then you just Ctrl C Ctrl V onto the exam paper, right? Confirm can score one, but so it's like yeah, just memorize everything. But actually in A level, if you're just doing that right, you can never score an A level job. So between O level and A level is usually O level is to be frank, it's just like memorizing what you need from your notes, and then whatever the question asks, you can just like paste how many points. Like, oh, if this is 4 marks, I need 4 points. Then I'll just paste the 4 different points that I memorized. And sometimes these points, like if you cannot really think of it or memorize on the spot, like some common sense will like help you derive some of the answers. My A level is not about just purely memorizing. It's about creating your own like arguments and stands. So in A level job, there's actually essays that you have to write. So these essays are 12 marks and 20-mark essays. These essays, you have to come up with like GP, your own stand, and then your like paragraphs on like why do you agree or like what makes your stand valid. So it's not just about copy and pasting content. You have to like actually craft an argument to say why you believe in this or why is your stand true. So in A level job, there's also something called synoptic link, which also to put it in a bit layman terms is to link the ideas from different chapters. So for example, in A level job, you actually have to link like, for example, theme one, which is about like maybe floods. You have to link it, try and link it to like maybe theme three, which is actually about humans or like livability of a city. So it's like how can floods affect livability of a city? So in your essays, you must try and craft these links between the different themes in order for you to score. And you cannot just like, oh, I just remember seeing floods in like this part of my notes, and then I just copy everything from that part of notes. No, you can't do that anymore in A level. You actually have to cross-reference to different chapters and like different themes in order for you to score or do well in A level job. And in A level, they really go a lot deeper into different issues and like different kind of phenomena that happens around the world. Yeah, so these are just some things that you can expect A-level job. So as mentioned before, you'll really dive deep into a lot more different things in more specific details, such as instead of like just saying floods or like how they are formed, we also come about like how is rain the formation of rainfall and like why some parts of the world will experience high levels of rain or low levels of precipitation, and like the different seasons. We also will talk about transnational corporations or like how goods and services are being brought about around the world. So a lot of this will be discussed in job. And in job, definitely, I think if you take O level or N level job, you definitely have to like draw or like use certain diagrams and then come up with your answers based on the resource. So that is, I think, is something you can actually expect rather than just keep writing words. You have to actually spend time to draw diagrams in your essays or even the data response questions. Data response questions are like questions where like they tell you from resource one, tell me the impacts of something something. Yeah. So there will be a lot of essay writing and time practices that you have to do. So in job, you cannot just be like, oh, I read my notes, I memorize my examples, I I'm okay with it. I think I can score well on the exam. No, for A level job, you have to do a lot of practices on your essay writing because some of these questions will be phrased differently, and these slight minute differences can actually change the way on how you answer the question. Because sometimes if you do not take note of these certain keywords, you may actually misinterpret the question and like not score well for the essay. So it's really important to write a lot of essays and learn more about the different type of answers that you need in order to tackle the question. Time practices is a must that you have to do. I think towards the end of the year for both year one and year two, you'll be doing a lot of time practices in order to train up on like not only your content but also your time management. Because I think it's like in humanities like econs, geog, or even history lit, you really have a lot of essays to write. So it's really like how you manage your time well in order to complete like your essays in exam condition and not like try to leave anything blank. Because really, if you spend too much time like the first essay, you may not have time to finish the second essay, which is a no go. So time practices on time management is really important. For job, there is no TYS or like any compiled summary that you can find in popular or online. A lot of people I know they try and get notes from Carousel and all, but I feel that the best way is actually to make your own notes and like find your own examples, because a lot of it comes from not memorizing other people's writing style, but actually come up with your own writing style. And this own writing style actually derives from a lot of essay writing practices on it. Yeah, so just beware if you like take A-level job, don't expect to have like one thick book of, let's say, preset essays or like preset answers or examples. Usually there are no such like resources for you. Mostly it comes from the school and like your own research. Oh, classroom activities. As mentioned before, like my school did quite a few of classroom activities, but I'm pretty sure every school will definitely do GI for you to experience what is GI like out. Because a lot of schools do communicate each other, say, oh, what do we do? They try and standardize what each school's curriculum will be like, and definitely they'll bring it out on GI. So that's something you can look forward to. And it's just going out of class and like having fun with your classmates. Yeah. So as mentioned before, like the diagram drawing, these are some diagrams that you commonly see in like job. So the first one is like Peltier's diagram. It'll tell you a lot about how temperature and precipitation affects weathering. And below is the difference between the different monsoon seasons, the north, east, and southwest monsoons. Then this is something called Walker circulation or the El Nino southern oscillation. All this you will definitely learn in job. So this is just to show you like what kind of diagrams that you need to actually know and draw. And like these are some things that to prep you if you're taking job that you actually have to memorize and draw them. But not so detailed, but maybe a simplified form. Yeah, so now I'll be moving on to talking about H1 and H2 job. So a lot of people think that hey, I don't want to take like H1 because it like increases the risk if I don't do well for one subject, then I cannot take that one as my H1, as opposed to someone being a 4H2 can choose the weakest one to be their H1. So what I say about the pros and cons of taking H1 would be the pros would be you have lesser classroom hours on your timetable. Because for a H1 student, you definitely have lesser hours in total for that subject. And if it's your weaker subject, taking will definitely ease the amount of workload you have to study and focus more on the weaker parts that you're facing for the subject. And it's better management between H2 and H1 subjects is if you want to focus more on your H2 and not like give up so much on your H1, which is your worst subject, it's like you actually have more time due to lesser hours on your timetable. You can just study more for the other subjects or use those time to do consults. But the cons for this is actually that you have lesser room for error, meaning that if your any of your H2s do badly, like you cannot use that as your H1. Even if your H1 gets an A, you cannot like suddenly change it to a H2. So it's kind of like a risk if you're taking three H2s and one H1, or one H3, two H2s, and one H1. Yes. Then you may have weird timetables. This is quite normal because if you are taking H1, sometimes the in between in the middle of the day will be like H2s, and you will just be having that whole break time before your next lesson. So this weird timetabling is really dependent on your school, how they arrange like the H1 and H2 for each subject compy. This may also have implications for those aiming for like scholarships overseas, because usually if you're taking a H1, you will uh, have a lower chance of getting the scholarship that you want as opposed to someone taking 4H2s. So if you are aiming for a scholarship, do keep in mind that if you plan to aim for a scholarship, see whether taking H1 is the right choice for you. So now I'm moving on to H1, H2 in terms of job. So in H2 job, you learn about tropical environments, which is about how the world is facing different type of climates or facing different phenomena such as like floods or like tsunamis. And then you also learn about development, economy, and the environment. You learn about water scarcity. You learn about resource, like why certain countries have more resource than other. Uh, you also learn about transnational corporations and also how resources flow throughout the world, the different goods and services. You'll learn about sustainable development, which is talks about the SDG of like the how the world looks at sustainable development, and also livability of cities, which includes like slums, which includes traffic, and all these sub themes. I'll go through later like the A level list because for it is actually it seems quite short, but actually the list is extremely long. There are a lot of sub topics that you have to learn. In H1 geography, however, you'll learn a lot less, and it's actually quite summarized here. You'll learn about climate change and flooding, urban change, which is actually about urban cities and livability, and your GI. So what's different about H1 is you do not have this development, economy, and environment. So resource curse, these human job will not really be in the H2. It's mostly um, natural job in H1. There's not much human job in H1. So I'll later refer to the syllabus during the Q&A to go through if what content you'll be covering in detail. So as mentioned before, from H2 to H1, definitely you'll have a lot less content to study for, about 50 to 60% less content. So definitely, as I said, if you really cannot cope before H2, taking H1 will be a great choice. But you also need to know that if you take a H1, like what are the different consequences that you may face or the different risks that you may have when taking a H1 subject. But taking H1 subject will also, as I mentioned on the slide, it says that you have one less paper compared to H2. So most of the H1 papers will probably have like sciences a paper 1 and a paper 2. For humans, it's usually just a paper 1. However, in H1, it's mostly just the content that is lesser. Usually the amount of skills required to write an essay is about the same as a H2. But you do definitely have lesser requirements to meet the scoring high marks for essays on H2. So if you're curious on what I mean about this, you can actually ask during the Q&A later, and I'll show you what I mean by synoptic linking, or why is that H1 is easier to score as compared to a H2. So I'll now be talking about general tips on like how to survive JC or A level. So one thing I find that is really important is to just ask around. Ask around like the seniors during like the very start of the year, like, oh, how are my how's job like, or how are the teachers teaching job like? Because I think one thing that really makes job a whole new experience is the teachers. So if usually job is actually quite a fun subject to take, but if the teachers don't try and like push you to like make you really want to learn job, then you'll get quite sian doing job lah, I have to admit. But for me, it's like the teachers really put in a lot of effort. They really take their time out to do consults with every one of us. And for job or any human subject, consults is extremely important. Because unlike like math or like sciences, where you can just like read, then do, then refer to the answer key, a lot of these human subjects, when you write your essays, you are not sure like where you stand, or like what kind of a good essay is this or not. So usually you have to ask your teachers to help you mark and then go for consults on how to improve or do better for the essay. So really, I feel that teachers are really important for human subjects, and also ask around about whether job is really manageable for them. Then you may get like the different insights on like how taking job is like, whether it's really boring or like if it doesn't suit you in any way. But definitely if you're a person that hates cramming content and like really don't like memorizing stuff, then job to be honest is not really for you. But I would say that if you like job, is quite easy to, it's not, I wouldn't say easy, but I'll say it's um you will put in it won't be that difficult to memorize certain things because you keep on repeating them to the point that you actually know some of these examples of content that you are memorizing. You don't have to memorize like word for word, but you have to memorize the gist of the content and like try and understand. Most importantly is to understand the content that you are memorizing. But as I said, you cannot just copy and paste the content you memorize. You need to have some arguments or like essay writing skills to make the content into an essay. So another point is do your research on where you want to go before like you decide to take geog as a subject. So if you're to be frank, geog is not really a lot of like uni courses requirements. Like usually they are asked for like math, physics, chem, or GP. Usually are these four common subject requirements on like whether you need a B for like GP or a minimum pass for H2 or H1 math. For geog, there aren't really any courses that require uses geog as a requirement, but people usually take geog because they actually enjoy doing it or like they find that to be honest it's easier to score. And to be honest, geog at the start it may be quite difficult to score, but towards the end, right, you'll find that the more essays you write, the easier for it is to find a pattern and score. So geog actually can be quite well to score and may be quite fun to learn as well. But usually people who take geog will end up who actually really enjoy geog will take history geog, where you'll go on like this partnership with like NUS, which is what my school did. Then you do on a research project, which is something similar to a GI but more advanced. Yeah, so usually people will like join like the NUS water challenge or they will go to like LTA or they'll go for the different type of challenges that can kind of um, help them boost their insight on what you can do after studying geog in A's. The first one, I think you can see my screen, right? Hopefully. Yeah. What kind of jobs or uni courses I can take in the future with H2 geog? So as I mentioned before, H2 geog is not really a requirement for a lot of the uni courses, but what kind of more specified jobs you can take is like URA, the Urban Redevelopment Authority Singapore, which does a lot on like urban planning, which like they plan the city development and how certain spaces can be better utilized. Or you can also go for like as I mentioned LTA or do just be a study further geography in uni. Like there is a course on geography in uni, just as I mentioned like NUS, NTU, they all have job courses in uh NUS or NTU. So I'm not too sure like what you actually study in those courses in much detail, but I do know that you actually will come up with your own project that depends on what you want to study at. If you want to do like more urban job, then you come up with a project on like how am I going to utilize this space or like how what uh you'll do on like a GI, a very big scale GI in uni if you're taking a job in uni. Then what kind of jobs is for this? I really do not have a definite answer what kind of jobs you can take with H2 job because as I said, it's not a requirement, but definitely H2 job is just uh something that you can take, but it doesn't really affect a lot of like your job scope in the future. I would say it doesn't have much impact unless you're going for jobs that are really specific to like human geography and like such as transport or about environment, urban development, etc. etc. So I'll say impacts on jobs is not that great. And on uni courses, unless it's you're going for the really specified course relating to geography, there's not a lot of courses that job will make a great impact on that if you like it's not a prerequisite for you to take like job. Well, I hope I answered your question. I didn't think I really did quite well answering that, but I hope I did clear some doubts. Is there a huge jump from secondary job in terms of content? Yes, there is a very huge jump. So about this, let me just share my screen again. I'll now go into quite detail on the content for job, the syllabus document for H2 job. So as you can see over here, it starts from here. You just need to look at these boxes. So this in job, there are three themes: tropical environments, development, economy, environment, sustainable development, and GI. I'll usually call the main theme these as the three themes and as GI one theme on its own. So the first theme you'll learn is on tropical environments, which includes all this tropical climate, hydrology, geomorphic processes, and which are basically like you'll learn about how rain formation is, why different places are experiencing different kind of climates, or you'll learn about river hydrology, which means like why certain part of the river are facing this, or how rivers are formed and shaped. And how rivers are formed are shaped are determined based on the geomorphic processes. This could include erosion, transportation, and etc. There's a really huge long list, which you'll all learn in just Team 1 alone. Team 1 also includes landscapes, which includes arid landscapes and tropical landscapes. All different type of landscapes you'll learn. Why are they arid, or like the certain landforms you will find in the arid landscapes, which like sand dunes, yadangs, and all this. You'll actually learn in Team 1 as well. You'll learn about deforestation as well as flooding. So as you can see, Team 1 alone, right, is already a huge chunk of content. So over here is a more detailed. See, in here you have tropical climates, redistribution of surplus by Hadisel. This will tell you on why certain climates are a certain way. These are the type of climates, the A type climates and the B type climates. Then you'll too learn about hydrology, the different processes, and how rivers are formed. Yes. Geomorphic processes, weathering, erosion, and mass movement. Mass movement is like the how slopes are formed, like how certain rocks move is due to the where stress is more than stability. Yeah, shear stress and shear strength. Correct. Yeah, so you'll learn all this in Team 1 alone. So I think one look you can tell that like jog, like for flooding is like one whole big chunk, deforestation one whole big chunk. But over here, Team 1 alone already has this much content. Yeah, landscapes. This is still Team 1, by the way. Karst landscapes. Karst landscapes includes like, if you know, like there's these like chocolate cones in Philippines, or like certain like mountain tower structures. All these are called karst in humid and arid tropics, as I mentioned before. Yeah, so you learn about like yadangs, all the sand dunes, all this in Team 1, and you learn about hydrographs, which shows you like the peak where there's rain in a river, and like when is it lowest, when is the usual river peak line. All this in deforestation as well, all this in Team 1. Don't be shocked, this is actually all this so far is just Team 1. This is Team 1. So one look, you can already see that it is a huge jump from O-level content. So Team 2, development, economy, environment, you'll talk about understanding development, the geography of global economy, governing the global economy, basically on how the economy moves and the different resources, how they are connected throughout the world. So as you can see here, you'll learn the theory first, core periphery. This is basically like theories people came out with the past on like the core, which is like the developed countries, periphery are less developed countries, how they supply manpower or resources to the core, which is developed countries, and how they sell it at a high price to like periphery countries, which are less developed countries, and they show the gap between the development. The whole part of Team 2 is about understanding a development gap. You'll learn about SDGs. These SDGs actually under Team 3, but you'll definitely, as I mentioned, you have to cross teams, mention about linking between the teams. So see this Team 2, SDGs is a Team 3 topic, but you have to use it in Team 2 as well. So you'll talk about the GPNs, which is the global production networks, how certain, how a product is being formed from its input, transformation, where does the manpower come from, maybe one part of the world can be used to just providing the parts for like maybe a phone, then it'll be shipped to another country where there's a low cost of labor, and people will make use of this low cost of labor to help install like maybe the phone, and it'll be shipped back to the main country and sell it at a high price. But however, the cost of labor is really low. That's the whole point of the GPN, basically to find the lowest possible cost for their production. TNCs, you'll learn more about it when you study job. The role of the state, regional and international organizations. This part is quite difficult to understand at the start, but if you do more about it, right, it's actually manageable. So this is only part one of Team 2. For part 2 of Team 2, you'll be valuing the environment and natural resources. This will be basically talking about the value of a resource, what a resource means in different countries or like in different places. You also learn about the different theories, Malthus, Botherap, and David. So these three talk about different theories. Like for Thomas, you'll talk about like how human growth is exponential while food growth is like declining or is going only a straight line. So it will result in like the population being way over the resources that the resources can handle. So all this you'll learn in Team 2. You'll learn resource curves, basically how countries with a lot of resources actually face less development or they are underdeveloped. You'll learn about water scarcity and transboundary rivers. Transboundary rivers are rivers basically shared by many countries, and you'll learn about how sharing this river have implications on each other. Yeah, so all this is already just Team 2, and Team 3 is on sustainable development, on energy and climate change. So I think this is pretty straightforward. So on the different energy sources, how to mitigate climate change, sustainable development. Then part 2 will be on livability and urban cities. So quite detailed here is what is sustainable development, how is climate change since the last ice age, how to mitigate and how to adapt to climate change. Adaptation and mitigation are different. I think if you take O-level geog, you'll realize that. Alternative energy sources, I think this is quite straightforward. So all this you'll learn in Team 3, which is usually year 2 when you study JC. Yes. Then urbanization and cities, you'll basically learn about why certain cities frame built in such a way. And like there's like a green city, there's a difference between the urban, the suburbs, and people living and like why people move to cities. All this will be covered in Team 3, and Team 4 will be about GI. So there are three types of GI. Rivers, if you know, it's like uh one of it will be like the the throwing the orange and then you see the velocity of the river. Yeah, that's part of living with rivers. You'll learn more about it under Team 1 when you study Team 1. Like the flood risk, all this is based on river morphology. People in economy, you basically learn about how like maybe you put a factory in the middle of a city and how will it affect the neighboring buildings around it. Will it cause a lot of noise? Will it cause like sound pollution, noise pollution? All these you'll be doing in part 2 GI. And livability of neighborhoods. Like maybe is there a park nearby and all this? How does it affect? All this you'll cover under GI and you'll answer them in the GI question. Yes. Yeah, these are the stages of GI, which you'll go through a lot in JC. Yep, so 20-mark questions. For over here, right, you will see something called synoptic thinking. Yes. This is important because in job, this is unique to job. Synoptic thinking or synoptic links means I need to link things from like different chapters. So now, as I mentioned, we got like chapter 1, 2, and 3. You need to link, for example, the essays on team 1. You have to take ideas from team 3 and link it to team 1 in order to hit a level 4 or a level 5 essay. If you do not hit this synoptic link, right, you'll never pass level 3. You'll go no higher than a 12 mark. So that's one skill that you need that you'll learn when taking A-level job. It's about a lot about writing skills and how do you incorporate different themes rather than just copy and pasting. Yeah, so I think that's about it. I hope if you have more detailed questions, to send in to that. Where is that page again? To the Menti. Hope this kind of answers your question. So yeah, so there is a huge jump in terms of content. As you can see, there's a really huge chunk for each team. So if you really uh do actually have a passion for job, I don't think that's a problem for you. But if you are the type that really cannot take in that much info, it's really hard for you to study geog. Can you see the list of chapters that will be taught in H2 geog? Yes, as I just mentioned, you can just search like A-level geog 20 H2 A-level geog, and you'll find that syllabus document. So the syllabus document really shows you like the detailed content that you'll be studying. And it's really a huge chunk list. You can slowly go through, and if some parts you are unsure, you can just send into the Discord channel in the Inkie Discord channel, and I'll help you answer it, or like any other tutors may help you answer it as well. Scheme of assessment like for geog. Okay, for geog, I'll go back to the slide on the syllabus document. So for geog, if you're taking H2, there are 2 papers. So the first paper, paper 1, is essays. So over here, they will show you the, I think it's above. Paper 1. Theme 1, you basically, paper 1 is 50%, paper 2 is 50%. Paper 1 will be 50%. It will talk about 3 essays. Each question, theme 1, theme 2, or theme 3. So you have to answer 1 question from each theme, and each question has a 12 mark and a 20 mark. So each question is worth 32 marks. Yeah, consists of 2 subparts, 12 mark and 20 mark. So you have to answer question 1 usually is like 1.1, question 2 is 1.2. So what do I mean by theme 1.1 and theme 1.2? Over here, you see, tropical climates, all this is theme 1.1. 1.2 is on landscapes. So what we usually do for geog is we kind of specialize in the theme. So maybe I like to do 1.1 a lot, which is about tropical climates and hydrology and geomorphic processes. And I'm a person that I cannot do arid landscapes, which is a topic 1.2. So I'll tend to go for question 1. Because for geog, it will be a case where question 1 will be a 1.1, question 2 will be a 1.2. Similarly, for question 3 will be a 2.1, question 4 will be a 2.2. So what that means is, so for theme 2, you see here, development economy is a 2.1. So all these 2.1 knowledge will come out in question 3. Question 2.4 will be a 2.2 question, which mainly talk about all this. Yeah. However, there is a chance where the questions can be a hybrid question. So you'll come up both theme 2.1 and 2.2. So, but it's best to study both. But if you really want to mean a theme, you can mean the sub-themes, and then basically most of the time you just be answering the same few questions. It's just a tip for geog. Try to specialize in the theme. And then yeah, so you'll do 3 essays, technically 6 essays, a part 1 and a part 2. So you'll do 6 essays for paper 1. Under 3 hours. So usually 1 hour per question. Paper 2 will be a data response question, which is basically you'll see like resources, and like let me try and find a geog paper online, and basically you'll do each question is 25 marks, which is basically corresponding to each theme. So you see here, question 1 will be theme 4, question 2 theme 1, theme 2 theme 3. Each question will have 25 marks. So like maybe theme 2, question 3, you can come up both 2.1 or 2.2. All these, each part will be 25 marks, standard. Yeah, so they'll give you like a resource, so it'll come up with like, a lot of different pictures or like maybe diagrams. Then use the like using resource tree, describe this, or like what are the impacts of with river morphology on something. Yeah, so it'll be a total of 100 marks. Each question be 25 marks, and they'll each come from one team. Each question will come from one team each. Yeah, so this is not that important. Yeah. So basically the marking will be paper 1 will be essays. You have to write 3 essays. Paper 2, you have 4 short DRQs to do. DRQ stands for data response questions. So you have 4 questions to do under 3 hours. Both are 3-hour papers for H2. For H1, you will have 1 3-hour paper consisting of essay, a GI question, and a DRQ. Yeah. in H1 you only have one paper, and you combine essay and DRQ together as one paper for H1. Because one thing is their content is lesser. Another thing is for H1, you do not have to do the synoptic linking as I mentioned before. You do not have to cross themes. So that already cuts down a lot of the time and like content you need. So it's only just one paper. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. How different is JC Geog syllabus compared to O-level Geog? Okay, I mentioned it earlier on, so I'll be moving on from this question. If I'm good memorizing content in on O levels, what areas should I work in or concern if I take H1 Geog in A levels? Okay, let me just share this question. I think it's a really good question. Yeah. So what areas you should work on or be concerned is one thing is how to craft your arguments. Like, for example, you'll be asking, explain why this country experiences describe how this country experiences this certain tropical climate. Or like they give you a statement, erosion is the main cause for forming of a river. These type of questions, then you'll ask you like to get a stand. Like, so, oh, is erosion the most important geomorphic process? Then you can say like, no, erosion may be a geomorphic process, but other processes such as weathering can come into play hand in hand in order to create this certain river. So a lot of it is like how to make use of this content and craft it into like an argument. So I can give you one short example. Well, let's see. Explain the let's take a this is a 20 mark. Weathering in the tropics is more chemical than physical in nature. These are the type of questions that will come out. To what extent is this true? So you have to take a stand. I disagree to a large extent. And you have to come up like on a different like scale over space and over time. So there are a lot of techniques in writing a job essay now. Sometimes you have to think of like you cannot just say like, oh, I agree, then you put 1, 2, 3, why I agree. Now it's like GP, you have to put like nuances into your essays. I disagree to a large extent, but actually it's like weathering processes can be chemical, but you need both chemical and physical are both dominant. So for H1, you just need to really practice on how to structure your essay and how to answer the question. Because sometimes I can just change this question. Reading the tropics is not more, is I can just change the question, for example, to say, weathering the tropics is the only process that is the only geomorphic process that affects geometry that affects morphology in the in tropics. You just change it to like this, and then a lot of it you have to think weathering only geomorphic process that affects morphology, and then humid tropics because they're arid and humid tropics. Now I have to focus on humid only. So a lot of it in both H1 and H2 to understand the question. So once you memorize the content already, you need to know how to use the content, how to answer the question. Because now the questions are not as straightforward as in the O-level job, where it's quite a one-dimensional sentence. Now it really throws in a lot of different keywords, and you need to answer based on these keywords. If not, you cannot score your essay. Okay, let me just get this question back. Yes. Yeah. So a lot of it really depends on how you answer the question. So once you memorize the content, just focus a lot on the skill sets. Oh my God, I'm running out of time. Let me hurry up. Do you think it's easy to score with the right study method? Yes. If you go for consultations a lot and you really like write your essays and try and give your teacher to mark a lot and really understand it, job is quite easy to score. Can you share more about your JC life? I'll share more if there are any more non-job related questions. But my JC was quite great. It was quite good. Because mine was like half was the pre-COVID period, so I enjoyed a lot of the activities. There were a lot more like inter-house kind of thing. There are not as many restrictions, but if you're talking about like studying wise, a lot of it I like to study in school. I'm not the kind that can study at home. But I really enjoy JC life. I think one important thing that I take away from JC is that enjoy a lot in J1. Because in J1, right, if you don't enjoy, right, you have no time to enjoy what the hell is JC about. So if you really want to like enjoy JC, go and try and take up as many opportunities in J1. So in J1 really is the time where you can try. J2 is the time where you study. But then again, I'm not saying in J1 don't study. Just take J1 as the time to experiment and try out many different things like competitions or like join like maybe certain camps or like maybe events or like inter-house your house games. Just go and join them. Like really, they'll really make your JC life a lot more better. More chapters than human, job, than physical. This is a half-half. Team 1 and Team 3 is physical job. Team 2 is purely human job. But in Team 3, there is also physical job under livability. So this is really a half-half. I won't say one is more than the other. Yeah. Applicable in real life or any uni course. Oh, once I think A-level job, right, is really once you learn the stuff in A-level job, right, you cannot unsee certain things. You'll be like, oh my god, all these things like, oh, this rock, how is it formed and all. Oh my god, then you'll talk about why is this thing here? Who planned all this? Yeah. Basically, you'll really have a different view on the world. Like, I kid you not, really. The one on uni courses, as I mentioned, it really does not have a lot of impact on designing your uni course, but it is really a good subject to take if you're really interested in job. How do I improve on my answering skills for data response question essay? Okay, data response questions. I'll briefly talk about this now. Then if you have any more detailed questions, you can just put it in the Discord channel as I'm running out of time. Data response questions, you have to look out for two types of questions. First type is point marking. Second type is on level marking. So what do I mean by that? So what I mean is, do I have a paper? I hope I do. Past papers. So basically certain parts, like for example, describe the distribution of clouds of like tsunamis in this area, blah blah blah. So that is 3 marks. That is point marking. You just have to talk about point 1, point 2, point 3. Or like, what are the impacts of deforestation on human landscapes, for example. So over that, you can just like talk about, for example, it's a 4 marks, just talk about the 4 points. So in level marking, you can just it's a lot different. So maybe you'll encounter more of this on 6 marks questions or 8 marks questions. So all this you have to write it in, not, you cannot say like 6 marks, I'd write 6 different points. No, you have to write a bit like a mini essay, and then you have to try and hit most of those points to get like 5 or 6 marks. Yeah, so how to tell whether it's a point form, a point marking or a level marking is by the number of points. Usually 4 marks or less is point marking, 5 marks and above is level marking, which is like mini essays. Any useful online resources you use for job revision? A lot of my job revision is I actually compile my own notes, and I really talk a lot with my teachers on like how to improve and like whether my essay is a level 4 or level 3 kind of essay. So a lot of it, I'll say consult your teachers. And resources, you really have to do research yourself. Or what I recommend is you can pick out certain like examples. Like there are really kind of detailed examples that you'll always use often. Like I would say like the Western Ghats in India. For resource curves, you can always use like Norway. You can use Nigeria for resource curves as well. So a lot of these are quite common, and you'll pick them up over the time. So what I will say is throughout the years, just slowly compile. You'll come up with your own set of notes that it will be sufficient for you. You don't have to rely a lot on online resources for job. Is human job dry? Yes. Straightforward question is yes. Human job is super dry. Physical job is a lot more interesting because when you draw diagrams, the teachers will actually try and make it a lot interesting. But human job is just dry. Yeah. I have no other way to put it. It's just dry. How do I start studying job before school starts? How do you start studying job? I would say just honestly, you can't really start studying job because a lot of schools will go through on physical job first, which a lot of it is quite technical, and you need to know certain keywords and terms. But if you really want to start studying job before school starts, I'll recommend like you can try and look up. If you're really interested, you can just type in Discord channel. What do I go through in the first part of the first term? Then maybe I'll just give you certain stuff to read on, which includes something like the Intertropical Convergence Zone, which is the ITZZ, the A and B climates. So all these you can just utilize the syllabus document that I mentioned before and use that to prep yourself for a JC job. Yes, okay, that's all.